What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 4 top 20 quarterback rankings, splitting these guys up into different tiers. We'll also be putting out my tight end and defense rankings today. But let's just dive right into the ranks. And as we've had through the first few weeks, it is the same top two. These guys were most likely the top two quarterbacks off the board. They have certainly lived up to the expectations. It's Josh Allen, and it is Lamar Jackson. I have Allen at number one just because he is the better matchup going up against the Saints compared to Lamar going up against the Chiefs. But these are the top two guys in points per game. Josh Allen averaging 24.5 points per game. Lamar Jackson all the way up at 27.6. It's just that the Bills this week against the Saints have an implied point total of 32.5. Very confident the Bills are going to run up the score here. I believe they're like 16 and a half point favorites. But if you drafted these guys, they're obviously going to be locks in your lineup. Then looking at tier two, going to start off this tier with Jalen Hurts, and we finally got to see a solid passing game out of Hurts. The pass attack was just anemic for the Eagles through 2 weeks. They go out week three, pretty much like against their own will. They have to pass because, they're trailing so much early on. Jalen Hurts goes 21 of 32 for 226 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. We finally got good games out of A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. There's definitely a drop-off after, Allen and Lamar, but I do think Hurts at this point does look like the QB3, at least heading into week 4, especially with Jaden Daniels banged up. Then at quarterback 4, I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. He's just been super impressive to start off the season. I'd say arguably he's been better from a real-life perspective than a fantasy perspective, but he's leading the NFL in passing yards. He is the quarterback 7 in points per game. I like this matchup here against the Giants. I think the Chargers can put up points. We did see Herbert use his legs week 1. Hasn't been the case as much in the last couple of weeks, especially in week 3, but he does have that ability. I like him here in tier 2. And then my last tier 2 quarterback, as a Bears fan, I feel great having Caleb Williams here. There was a lot of uncertainty coming into this season. The first 2 weeks were kind of up and down, but he went out in week 3, super impressive game, 19 of 28 for 298 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. So far this season, he is the quarterback 3 in points per game. And I do think this is a decent matchup here against the Raiders. I think the Raiders defense could have been something coming into the season. They've not been great to start off. We just saw them give up 41 to the Jaden Daniel-less Commanders. So I think this Bears offense is starting to hum a little bit. We saw Luther Burden, their round 2 pick, getting involved. If Loveland can play this game, I do think it's a breakout opportunity for him. I think if he didn't get hurt in week 3, that would have been a big game for him. He only ran 5 routes on the day, but he was the first read on 3 of them. It did seem like the Bears and Ben Johnson were making an effort to get, these rookie weapons involved. So I think Caleb can have another really strong game here against the Raiders. Then moving into tier 3, going to start off this tier with Drake May. He scored at least 15 points in all 3 of his games. He's averaging 20.4 points per game. We've seen the rushing upside over the last couple of weeks, 76 total rushing yards and a touchdown in those last 2 games. And then the Patriots are projected to put up points in this matchup. They have the 8th highest implied point total here against the Panthers. I know the Panthers just had a super impressive defensive game against the Falcons. I kind of attribute that more to the Falcons just like melting down and collapsing than like the Panthers having some sort of like big resurgence on the defensive side. So Drake May's been a solid fantasy option. I think he keeps it rolling here in week 4. Then I'm going to go with Justin Fields. This is obviously assuming he's going to be back from the concussion. He obviously had the amazing week 1, 29.5 points, then just a complete clunker in week 2, even before he left with the concussion. I want to say it was like early 4th quarter. Like that was not going to be a strong fantasy day. The Dolphins, though, have allowed the 2nd most points per game to the quarterback position. If Fields does play this week, I do think this is a nice matchup to kind of come back to. Then I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. We had seen, decent fantasy production through 2 weeks. A lot of it carried by his rushing production, like 50-plus rushing yards, a touchdown each of those first 2 games. The rushing didn't quite show up in week 3. This is just kind of hoping that the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy back. If Worthy's not back, I'd probably have Mahomes maybe towards the bottom of this tier. I will say, though, the Ravens defense, has been kind of open to giving up some big games, especially to talented quarterbacks. We saw it with the Lions and Jared Goff. We also saw it with Josh Allen. Obviously, those are top tier offenses. Chiefs haven't really been that early on this season, but if they can get Xavier Worthy back, I would feel a lot better about Mahomes. Then at quarterback 9, I'm going to go with Jordan Love going up against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are allowing the most points per game to the quarterback position. The Packers have the second highest implied point total. I think this is a really nice bounce back opportunity for Jordan Love, who did have a really rough week 3 going up against that very tough Browns defense. Just matchup wise, this is really night and day from week 2 to week 3. So I like Jordan Love here as a solid like back end QB1. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Daniel Jones. Continued his strong start to the season, wasn't quite as great as week 1 and week 2, where he put up 29.5 and 22.8 points, but 15.8 points will certainly still play. This is just kind of a tough matchup here against the Rams. This defense has been very solid. I still think he's playable. He's been impressive early on, but this is a real test here going up against this Rams defense. Then moving into tier 4, going to start off this tier with Bo Nix going up against the Bengals. And admittedly, like Bo Nix has been really rough to start off the season, both from a real life and a fantasy perspective. He's only averaging 13.5 points per game. It really feels like the Broncos should have won that game against the Chargers. Nix missed at least like 3 just straight up wide open dudes down the field on shot plays. I just think this is the get right opportunity here for him going up against this Bengals defense. We saw last year, especially after the first few weeks, like first 3-4 weeks of the season, he kind of struggled. Then he really put it together. We could see a similar thing this season, and I do think that could be jump started with this matchup against the Bengals. Then I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield. I think people are going to think this is too low, having Baker at 12. I will just say I believe he's like the quarterback 9 in points per game, so it's not insane just relative to his point per game number. But we also have to look at the matchup here against the Eagles. It's not a great matchup. This is a very solid defense. And then you also look at the injuries where you now have Mike Evans going to miss some time here. That's obviously a hit to this offense. You could be getting Godwin and Wirfs back, but if Godwin does play this week, like I'm not expecting him to be anything close to the Godwin we saw last year. I imagine he's going to have to work himself back. I don't think he's going to be super productive early on. And then you just look at the Vegas projections, and the Buccaneers have the 8th lowest implied point total. So Baker, he's been super impressive. I mean, he's been the clutchest dude in the league, through the first 3 weeks, 3 game-winning drives. I just don't know if this is a smash spot to play him here against the Eagles. Then I'm going to go with Jared Goff going up against the Browns. The Lions have the second highest implied point total. Jared Goff on the season is the quarterback 11. You know what you're getting out of him. It's just pure passing production. I do think, though, even against a tough defense, the Browns are super tough against the run. So maybe this is a game where if the Lions do put up points, it is going to be through Jared Goff and the passing game. And then the last guy in tier 4 is going to be Brock Purdy. This is obviously assuming he returns from his toe injury. You also have his weapons kind of up in the air. Is Juwan Jennings going to play in this game? Jags defense actually has been kind of decent this season, but I still think it's like a high-end QB2. If Purdy's out there, he is playable. Then tier 5, this is kind of a disappointing tier. I'm going to go with Kyler Murray as my quarterback 15. He just has not been impressive this season. 15.5 points per game. He has not hit 20 yet. The Seahawks have allowed the 6th fewest points per game to the quarterback position. I will say, like, he didn't get a lot of help in this game. Marv dropped at least one, big downfield pass. There was another one in the end zone that it seemed like he could have snagged. So it's just been underwhelming. Kyler had a really strong start to his season or his career, especially from a fantasy perspective, like early on. And it's really just kind of stalled, and we haven't seen a lot of that upside over the last few seasons. Quarterback 16, going to go with Geno Smith. The Bears have allowed the 3rd most points per game to the quarterback position. Geno Smith, from a passing volume perspective, has decent numbers. He is 2nd in total passing yards. I do think this could potentially be a get-right game here for the Raiders. And then the last guy in this tier is Matthew Stafford. Hasn't been amazing this season, but the Rams are projected for the 4th most implied points. I think from a real-life perspective, he's been solid. Obviously, he's feeding Puka. He's feeding Devontae Adams. At some point at the quarterback position, you just want to start a good NFL quarterback who you think can give you a decent baseline of production. It's just like the overall upside is capped because he does need a nuclear passing day to give you a ceiling because the rushing is just non-existent, like -8 rushing yards on the season. That's not going to give you much or anything for fantasy. And then the 6th and final tier, going to start off with Dak Prescott going up against the Packers. CeeDee Lamb's going to miss some time. This is a really tough Packers defense, and they're 6.5 point dogs. So there could be some passing volume out there. I just think expectations really have to be tempered here going up against the Packers. Then, as you can probably guess at this point, I'm assuming that Jaden Daniels doesn't play. If he does play, he'd probably be in like that tier 2, tier 3 area. It really would depend on like the reports we're getting on his mobility. I would hope that if he's not close to 100%, they wouldn't push it, especially with, how well Mariota played, in replace of him. But I have Mariota here as my quarterback 19 going up against the Falcons. Like I said, really strong game, 15 of 21 through the air, 207 passing yards, a passing touchdown. Also went 6 for 40 on the ground and a touchdown. This might seem low considering how well he did play. I do think like the floor is pretty low. This offense could kind of collapse if he doesn't play super well. Also, Terry McLaurin's status is up in the air for week 4. And then the final quarterback here, this has been a bummer. It's Trevor Lawrence. I really liked him coming into the season. He was one of my favorite late round quarterbacks. I'm not bailing. Like, I do think things are going to turn around for this Jaguars offense, specifically with BTJ. I just think he's too talented to be as bad as he's been. And then also I think maybe they figure something out with Travis Hunter, but it's not been pretty. He's averaging 12.4 points per game. The lack of rushing production has been brutal. He only has 25 rushing yards, which for someone with his athleticism is just, not good enough, especially for fantasy. So that is going to wrap it up for my top 20. If you guys enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe, questions, comments, feel free to drop them down below. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.